I asked this government to support workers in workplaces like Cosmetica, where workers were threatened of losing their jobs if they missed work because they were afraid of contracting the COVID-19 virus. Mr. Speaker, the Ford government has ruled Cosmetica a makeup factory, once I've repeated many times in this House, a makeup factory to be an essential business. And as a result, Cosmetica has been forcing workers to continue working during the pandemic while endangering not only these workers, but also their family and their loved ones. And after taking advantage of so many vulnerable workers who, despite their worries, went to work, facing threats and risking COVID-19, Cosmetica fired 180 hardworking employees, many of whom did not receive their record of employment or any details about the severance or the exit packages. Many of these workers are women, Mr. Speaker, racialized women, who have been working there for more than a decade. And after the company actually hires these workers for about 3 to 5 years on contract or temporary basis, they then give them permanent status. And after all of that, while Cosmetica gets special treatment from this government, 180 workers lost their jobs. A few weeks back, we actually heard from the member from Scarborough Centre that she herself, along with the Minister of Red Tape Reduction, visited Cosmetica. And in the name of red tape reduction, this government has trampled over workers' rights and is now refusing to give them their record of employment. Mr. Speaker, 180 workers lost their jobs. This was their livelihood. Is this what red tape is? To make it easier for large businesses like Cosmetica to fire workers without giving them the necessary documentation? The fact that workers now have to fight to get their documentation of just the record of employment? And I want to repeat, this is not an isolated event. This is not an isolated incident, certainly not limited to Cosmetica. My office has received so many calls during the COVID-19 pandemic, and it was so difficult for workers to find safety in their workplaces because they had set up a system where inspectors would call and find out from management whether the workplace was safe or not. And despite numerous positive tests, all workers were not asked to quarantine. One of them recently was Tim Hortons near my office in Scarborough Southwest. But what Cosmetica did when they had a COVID positive test recently, what they told their employees that they had a member from Scarborough Centre, the MPP, local MPP, visit Cosmetica, and therefore everything should be okay. And last week, when I asked the Minister of Labour my question to help these workers to have their record of employment, I wasn't asking for much, Mr. Speaker. I just want these workers to know whether they got enough pay or not, whether their severance packages make sense, so they could actually file a complaint or figure out what they could do to fight for their rights. So last week, when I asked the Minister for the record of employment for his support, he gave the toll-free 1-800 number. Shameful. Calling a helpline is not enough for businesses taking advantage of the crisis and failing to protect workers. Mr. Speaker, we need sweeping preventative legislation that protects our workers in such situations like right now. After firing 180 workers, so that Cosmetica, like many factories, could actually hire employees on the cheap through agencies, because that's exactly what they're doing right now. And there are no consequences for Cosmetica and other organizations that are doing the exact same thing. And then not giving an ROE and severance information that they're legally entitled to. This minister asked that these vulnerable employees expose themselves individually, which they're afraid to do, and then ask for their ROE. Why can't this government, a government that claims to be for the people, why can't this government just ask an organization to give them the record of employment, Mr. Speaker?